Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions of Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Shannon, and joining me is Jessie.
Hello, I'm Lady Lameness.
Also joining us is Adim.
Hi, I'm X.
And last but not least is Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Cosmeregirl.
And you know me as Gray. I have murdered Eric and taken his place, and he wrote this in the script to say that. Cue evil laugh. Today, we're going to be talking about the reading of Fires of December from Nexus. Fires of December is going to get a Dragonsteel edition like the other secret projects attached to the Hoid Storybook Kickstarter in March, which will deliver by the end of 2026, but the trade edition from Tor will be out for 2026 Nexus. So that's pretty cool. If you guys don't mind, I would like to start off with the book blurb because I don't know about you guys. I didn't see this blurb until after I did the reading myself, and it seems to have completely new information, but it's a blurb, it's official, so hopefully nothing too crazy and spoilerific here. In a forgotten land sustained by colorful rivers of demon blood, a young woman named December learns a devastating plague is on its way. But who will believe her? Against impossible odds, she sets sail up the River Violet to warn the king's court, determination and wisdom beyond her years burning in her eyes. Along the way, she'll navigate incredulous royal officials, twisted court intrigue, and a roguish count with only her wits and her new friends, a talkative priest, and a fledgling fashion designer. Well.
Yeah, I was unaware that this existed until like 15 minutes ago. So.
Yeah. So let's
I think I found this in the Kickstarter information. I'm pretty sure that's where this lives.
Thank you for finding that.
Yeah.
I would never have known it because it's not in the email, right? Like from the newsletter?
No, it's not.
The email.
Yeah. Completely.
Yeah, I think some people, like, I think the Kickstarter information released like a few minutes before the reading. So people who like weren't at Nexus, like read the blurb first and then got the reading. Which I imagine is a confusing experience.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh.
I saw the blurb just before the reading because it launched on Kickstarter just before Brandon did the reading. I think it launched just before he actually announced it as well. Mm-hmm. So people online were talking about it before he had actually said anything.
For like 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. Because I had the stream up of his talk. And I wasn't looking at any emails, all of that. And I completely new to me.
Yeah. So at Nexus, he read the first 2 chapters of the book, but he also introduced the artists for the book, like the other secret projects. So it'll be some interior art, and then also he showed off I think that this is a work in progress version of the cover, sort of like we got for the other secret projects.
So the cover art for Fires of December will be done by Tran Nguyen, who also did the trade edition for Yumi.
Nice.
And I think that they're also doing the interior art, or do we know that we just know about the cover art so far?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
With the secret project, I'd expect the interior art, but I don't think they've announced anything about it. Well, the cover art is cool.
Put it in the comments.
Yeah, if you know, put in the comments. We'll be keeping an eye out for who's doing the art.
And he also said that this is sort of retroactively being added to a sort of pseudo series called Hoid's Trevails, which includes Tress, Yumi, and now December, or Fires of December. The only through line seems to be that Hoid gets into trouble in all these books, but it's not going to be like, as far as I know, it's not going to be labeled as such. It's just sort of something that if people are aware of, then they're like, okay, this is a Hoid story. But
I think it might actually be labeled that way on Amazon now.
Oh, okay.
If I'm remembering right, I think it's labeled as Hoid's Trevails on Amazon.
Interesting. So I wonder if because I think Amazon lists Tress and Yumi as like secret projects 1 and 3 as if they're part of a series. So maybe they'll go back and change it so that those aren't in like a secret projects series. Oh yeah, Tress and Yumi are both in the a series called Hoid's Trevails on Amazon, at least. So looks like the series name is being made official. for those retroactively added books as well.
I'm so excited for this series. It's going to be my favorite series. It's like my favorite series and my favorite group of books. Very happy.
I do wonder if Dragonsteel will end up being part of Hoid's Trevails.
Oh, that would be fun.
Because I feel like these books already, like the timeline's already a mess in terms of like, I don't know where, I guess Tress happens before Yumi, but like when they're being told versus when the events take place and all that, it's all a mess. So if they want, then they could certainly say that Dragonsteel is part of Hoid's Trevails, and it's like Hoid's telling the story to someone in the far future about the Shattering or something like that. But
I feel like they'll probably keep Dragonsteel separate, partially because it's a series, whereas these have all been standalone books. And I could see the publishers really wanting to sell these as packs of, here are like 4 different stories that you could get for like Hoid's travels, but they're not a series. It's just like, here are different stories you can read. Sort of like an anthology, but that are different books instead.
Yeah.
I also wonder if they might not do that, but for the reason of like story prose impact, if we get so used to all these Hoid's Trevails and then all of a sudden we're in his head and it's not a story, it's him as a young person who hasn't grown into that yet. I feel like that could be a pretty cool, impactful moment to realize this is not a Hoid who's learned to put on that persona, that face on things yet. Yeah, I think that could be cool too. Which would only really have the same impact if this Hoid's Trevails really take off.
I imagine that Brandon has a few more premises for Hoid gets into wacky hijinks and is punished in the chamber.
Sure. So the spoiler level for all this chat is going to be everything. All Cosmere, including Isles of the Emberdark, and of course, the 2 chapters that were read at Nexus of Fires of December. So be warned before that this is going to be it could possibly be a very spoilerific episode.
Yeah, I'm with the Hoid's Trevails thing. I'm looking forward to, in Emberdark, he mentions the murder in, was it?
The Grand Apparatus.
And yeah. That sounds like such a fun story to have that like whole murder mystery. I would love to see that as part of the series.
Oh, we don't have enough murder mystery in the Cosmere. Let's go.
Yeah, because I think that there's also a mention of someone says that Hoid implied that he helped solve a murder, but I think it's like Starling thought that he probably wasn't all that helpful actually. So I could see some like fun, like, Sherlock and Watson type dynamics, except one of them is like just not taking it seriously or something like that.
It would be the most involved because at least so far, Hoid has mostly just been in the corner in these stories. Yeah, so like Hoid being like the unhelpful Watson in this kind of book would be similar role with just like a little bit more focus. I think that would be really fun. Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of Hoid's Trevails and how mysteries would be a lot of fun, I love the first couple chapters of this because for a number of reasons, but one of them being it's really phrased as a mystery in a way. There's one quote that stands out is, I didn't have any idea how important this woman was, but I'd like you to be better informed. To accomplish this, the next sequence will go on longer than you might think requisite. I ask your patience. These details are relevant, I promise. I love that because it's immediately, here's a bunch of details. We'll talk about it later too. But he discusses specific times, like when she was 30, when she was 24, for example. The river was this color at this time point. It was this color at this time point. Like it's all these little details, which gives a very strong flavor of you can solve this mystery if you put the work into it. And I don't know, who knows if we have all the details we need, right? I'm sure there's plenty more. And I'm sorry I'm going on about this, but I feel very strongly about this. Brandon has talked about in the past, when you have a good story, when you have a good reveal, a piece of that is the character having enough details so that the reader can figure it out like just at the right time. So it feels like work. It doesn't feel obvious, but it's a very satisfying when they're like, yes, I saw that coming. And this feels like it has the makings of that, is you have just enough details to start to put together the picture and to kind of work on the mystery. I am hoping, obviously we'll see what happens, but it feels like it's going to be a very satisfying ending just based on this and how it's set up.
I hadn't thought about it that way, like at all. And I like that because I was more thinking about it in the sense of, oh, here's the story, here's the setup, and like now I know who this person is. Oh, that's so interesting. Like to think of like all like here when she's 25, this is what was happening to the river, and this is what people were saying was happening in the capital. Like, and so I was interested to see her interact with those things, of course, like in the sense of like using her future knowledge. But I really like, we're gonna maybe try and be solving a mystery at the same time rather than just like watching her go ahead and simply do the Heimlich like she did.
Yeah, definitely rereading it. Every time I got to a point that it started talking about something happening in the capital, something happening to the demon, in my head, I was like, okay, can I start guessing at what she's going to do or at what's happening at that point? And trying to like put together little clues to see if I could get it for the future.
Because all the things they were going to say about what to do, I was so curious, like, is that hearsay? Are all those things that they're saying accurate? Because like it's so far distant. I was like, oh, but in my head, I'm thinking, oh, but surely it's going to be different than what they say has happened. Like, sure, the king probably did die at that year, like when she was still fairly young in her 20s. Like, probably there was some like unrest, but I'm like, oh, we're going to go there and find out like maybe the king was evil and like the duke was in the right or something like that. Like, so I'm thinking here, like being very suspicious of all the hearsay coming down, but I'm like, oh, but what is she going to do about that? She's a fairly old woman in her mind.
And I am getting way ahead. We are planning to come back to this, I promise. But relevant to what you're saying is one example of this. He writes, the stories coming downriver were disturbing. Tales of the demon making a fire in the sky and of a war for the throne, the king dead, betrayed by one of his dukes. And I love that because, and there's reasoning here, is if you flip it, it's flipped from chronological order. And I love what that does to the mystery because it sounds like jumbled facts. If you flip it, it's literally just rearranging the order. So the king was betrayed by one of his dukes, killed, and then there was a war for the throne. And I love how that changes the feel of the phrasing, even though it's literally just the order of the pieces for the puzzle.
Oh, interesting. Like the war could have happened at any time before or after the actual death of the king.
So it's a secession war is what it says somewhere else. But it's written in here as, the secession war probably comes after the king dies, right? The king dies and the king was betrayed by one of his dukes, but the betrayal comes first. Right? So it's backwards chronological order. The king is betrayed. The king is killed. And then there's the secession war. I
think that Brandon had a lot of fun writing sort of in like this isolated environment, both like physically isolated, but then like isolated from like by knowledge of like, you get the impression that they're getting news, in fragments from people coming downriver who may or may not actually know what's going on. I think that sort of more broadly, my initial thoughts for the first two chapters would just be that I liked the sort of short storyness of at least the first chapter where he was able to tell a full, it doesn't end happily, but it's a complete story that I do agree that we'll sort of be coming back to for the entire rest of the book, looking like finding clues for, whatever events will be happening, in like chapter 20 or something, it may be. One thing that sort of struck me was just like the time spans involved. Like, I don't know how long, like, are we going to see the king die at like the end of this book? And then like all the time after that was just wouldn't have any like relevant information to future events in the book, but would be relevant to December's character? Or is the king going to die like halfway through the book and then, all that kind of stuff. So
like, are we going to live to see her be 80 again? Is like that what sort of your all these events and see a full life? I can see because it's because of the tone shift from chapter 1 to chapter 2 that I'm kind of thinking like maybe the rest of like her new life happens in the almost epilogue, because I can see how quickly in chapter 2 she just 1, 2, 3 dealt with the issues of the town like in a day. Basically,
that's a good point.
In a morning, in a single morning, she basically dealt with a bunch of the problems of the town that they might have had.
I could see it being, like the book is basically her at 21 the entire way through, and then the epilogue is her at 80 again. And it's just like a giant time jump.
That would be good.
I'd like that. But that's kind of what I was thinking, because like it became the tone became a little bit more adventurous, and a little bit more, you can see the autonomy and like that she has, that December has. She's taking like the power into her own hands to be like, I'm old. I'm not going to freak out about this. I'm just going to handle it because I'm here, which I like. I like when characters don't do too much of the freaking out and this can't be happening. I'm like, it goes on too long and then I don't really like it. This one, straight to business, kind of like that. Really good. But I can totally see her, because she's going to be maybe a new force, a new element at court, and then maybe like even that first bit of news that they got, like the first trouble that they heard about, like the demon woke up. The demon revived itself or whatever. I can see as soon as from there everything's diverted and now everything is like a more tightly packed story, especially given the tone of the blurb as well. Like those sorts of friends that she was talking about, talkative priest and fledgling fashion designer. I don't know, this all of a sudden now it feels like a little bit more of an adventure story.
Yeah, and also talking about court officials and court intrigue and stuff. I guess that she probably will. That implies that she gets there before, there's a demon flying around the Capitol shooting fire out of its mouth or whatever.
Before there's the succession for the throne and a war for succession. Yeah.
There's a roguish count too, which will be fun. I
do like roguish characters. I'm wondering if any are Hoid, but I'm like, no, he's a jester. He's wearing the stupid motley patches of jester.
I had to question if that's a Wheel of Time reference or not for the
for a brief moment I wondered. And then I was like, oh, okay, like the way we think of jesters more than like Wheel of Time thought of Gleeman, but for the same reason I thought, oh, is this
Gleeman's cloak?
Gleeman's cloak? No, it's jester's motley. Got it. He looks ridiculous, but this time it's not his fault. This time it's not his own bad taste inflicted on him.
Someone else's bad taste.
So I had a question for you all. Do we think that something upriver in whatever is happening there is what caused the sickness?
Oh.
I like how the obvious answer is yes to that, but
yeah,
that's just arcane in nature. Like it's not regular.
I think the answer is yes, but it's like, I don't know. I get a lot of like Era 1 vibes from this in terms of there's a lot of like mythologizing being set up on like different levels of like there's a demon, like the prophet showed up, stabbed the demon's blood's going into the river, and then I feel like basically every part of that like creation myth is going to be recontextualized by the time we get to the end of the story. I feel like the sickness starts after they hear about the demon being freed, right?
Yeah.
So
I think
well after.
Yeah. So I was thinking that the demon, like the demon blood, whatever that actually means, I don't think it's actually a demon. I don't know what a demon would be in the Cosmere, but I think that whatever it's doing to the river is suppressing the sickness. And then when it's freed, it stops like bleeding into the river, and the rivers sort of start morphing into something that causes a sickness. Something kind of like Midnight Essence, maybe. I don't remember if I don't think we have a WOP on that, but it turns like sickly black from like a sort of smooth violet
and gets darker and darker and becomes like more almost like a sludge, like it stops flowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And so-
clotted, I think, is what they call it. Or they say it's like, it's as if it clotted. So yeah, basically, I think that the demon, maybe realmatically was like supplying investiture or something to stop the river from trying to do other stuff. Like, and then when the demon was freed, the river started like, I don't know, draining people of their life essence or something.
Decaying almost.
Yeah, I feel like the natural state of the river is dangerous, and the demon's presence was suppressing that danger.
Yeah, so it says it had been building for years. The rivers curdling following the deadly events far upstream finally reached it. So it probably had started there, eventually flowing down. It was caused by the deadly river itself turned poisonous.
Mm-hmm. And notably, December doesn't get sick.
Notably.
Yeah, because I think everyone contracts the plague. 1 in 10 survive the plague. December never contracted it to begin with, I believe is how it goes.
The 1 in 10 is interesting too, because it's very reminiscent of like Era 1 Scadrial, with the 16% were snapped with the miss.
This could be significant realmatically.
Yeah. I'm sure eventually we'll get to the question of trying to figure out if this is associated with a shard we're familiar with or something else.
So do we think December's mom was from Offworld?
Ooh,
that would be interesting.
Is that like not the most?
I would say yes, because that's a fun answer.
Mm-hmm. She's described as an Outlander, not native. Yeah. So I definitely get the impression that she's a world hopper.
The whole thing about how immune December is, because she says like the river of blood doesn't touch her and falls off, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that happens to everyone. But I wonder if there was something even more to that, even from the beginning. And so when we got to the sickness part, the plague, I was completely unsurprised to see that of course she's immune. There was nothing that threw me in that. And then I thought, her mom.
I was imagining her mom came from somewhere else in the same worlds. But I'm trying to think if it was yesterday or today, I started toying with the idea that maybe her mom is descended from royalty, like the prophet, except it does say, I think that, does it mention in here that there was nothing? No, that's Tress. I'm thinking of Tress. Tress has a line about Tress is not descended from royalty, though her grandmother had waved to the king once. But, she could be descended from the prophet, possibly.
Ooh, I don't mind that either.
I think there's a connection between December and the prophet, but I think the connection is more like December is the next prophet.
Yeah, of the same kind.
Oh yeah.
Of what? Yeah. Totally.
She's gonna do something similar.
That feels like the promise that's being set up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another like Era 1 sort of similarity of like a cyclical person chosen by something has to go somewhere and do something, prophet and hero of ages comparison. And so I feel like there is probably going to be some major like distinguishing factor between what December ends up doing and what Vin and Reshek ended up doing. But I think that sort of vaguely there are parallels of like the previous prophet was someone who had died, come back, and use the visions from their previous life to do something.
Oh, that would be a cool way to be a prophet, living a whole life. Oh, that's so interesting. I like that a lot. I want that to be true. One thing I was reading as we were catching up on like the lore of the prophet, this is after the demon is free, and a little bit more December's reflecting on the prophet, and the blood and the corpse. Like, I wonder if what the priest said was true, if a prophet had truly come to save the land 3 centuries before. She imagined his sword, So if that was indeed true, what would she make, or what should she make of the newer story saying the demon was free? Would the prophet return? If so, would he do as he had done last time, healing those who were afflicted with diseases? And that's not even the part when the plague had come yet. That's something that just was known the prophet had done. That's part of the story, healing diseases.
That's it.
What a world we live in. Post pandemic. This is part of our now this is part of our global consciousness of stories of like, let's think about sickness a lot.
Okay, I have another one for everyone.
Yeah.
The demon. The whole thing about fire in the sky. Do we think it's a dragon?
An evil dragon? Do we think possibly?
Does it have to be evil? Like, could it turn out that the demon was actually good all along?
That
would
be a very Brandon direction to go.
It would be. I'm
very
I'd totally be unsurprised if it was a dragon too. I'm just struggling to rectify it, like with the blood thing seems so specific and maybe not dragon-like. But I'm like, I'm sure maybe there'll be an interaction maybe of like, maybe there's something to blood rivers in this world that maybe a dragon is just interacting with.
When we talk fire in the sky, my first thought is that it's more of a metaphorical fire. And you know what I thought of actually? I was thinking of the Aurora Borealis.
Oh, okay.
Is what that made me think of.
Well, that's interesting.
I don't know, that very much is probably not where that's going, but just like the metaphorical, what in the Cosmere would be like a metaphorical fire in the sky? What kind of investiture? Like, how would you do that?
What if they saw the red rib and took that?
Oh, that would be interesting.
Sky?
Yeah, like a.
So I don't
know.
Really see why they wouldn't normally see it and then suddenly they would see it. So I'm not sure about that, but yeah, that's just something that came to mind.
I do think that it being like a sort of beneficent being that was like, for lack of a better metaphor, put itself up on the cross to keep the river from sickening people. Maybe with it, like it yeah. It could be like the prophet like stabbed actually did stab the dragon with a magic sword, or it could be, that's a misunderstanding of what the prophet negotiated with the dragon to, keep the river from sickening people, or who knows. But
okay, my pet theory on this one, because I do have a pet theory on this one too. I really like this fic. So the line you started to read from, but you were looking at the later part. She imagined his sword said to be lodged in the demon's beating heart, holding it imprisoned like a pin held a butterfly to its board. But then I love the part too, how you have the silver mine and the silver vein. And we know silver is important Cosmere wise. And so is that sword really silver that has to keep getting replaced or something over time? Because especially you read in like Tresses, I think eventually the silver kind of wears away and has to get replaced on the ship. Yes. Is this why it's so important to have silver mines? Why there's the reward for the silver? Because they need it to keep this demon imprisoned.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. My thing is, like, I keep thinking of what the prophet has done as preventing disease, preventing whatever. And I can't see how in my mind, without all the information that the book is going to provide, obviously, I'm like, I'm struggling to think of like what a dragon being free would make corruption and poison happen. But it is a magical corruption. It is a magical sort of poison. Oh,
yeah.
Maybe it's a creature we've never seen before.
Possibly.
Oh, this is.
If silver is relevant to the demon, and if we imagine other things the demon could be than a dragon, silver is very relevant to shades, and so it could be like a shade type entity. Like, I forget if the entities in Ember Dark react to silver. I don't
think it comes up.
Brought up,
if I'm remembering right.
But if we say that actually, maybe the demon is actually a bad thing, and the river turning into like black sludge is actually Midnight Essence, then maybe the demon is, something like a nightmare from Yumi or something that they had to continually use silver, and then there's like a politicking stuff, and oops, we forgot to replace the silver guys, because we were busy with our succession stuff, something like that. There's definitely a lot of directions I think Brandon can go.
One of my favorite ways to approach this question is, what does a system look like when it's working? So functional system here, we have the three rivers, which apparently only one of which is violet, which is interesting.
Well, it's called the River Violet. That implies certainly that the others are not violet. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't be called the River Violet if they were all this color.
I just call them all the River Violet. They get extra confusing. So assuming, but yeah, it's the River Violet. So you have the three rivers coming from a central capital, and these towns and cities don't work. I guess I'm assuming, does it say that the demon is in the capital?
Or like around the capital, or...
It's implied, I think.
It's implied it's either in the capital or near the capital. Like that's where they built the capital because of the demon's body or something like that. That's the implication I got for sure.
Yeah, and it sticks out to me because this system doesn't work. Not really, unless you have the demon's body in the capital. Like you have to have the blood flowing.
The demon is in the capital.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. From December. During those lonely years, December would look upriver, imagining the distant corpse in the capital that bled out this highway.
In the capital. Yeah.
And like this, the economy doesn't work. The government system doesn't work. Like all of this is based around the fact that the demon is in the capital and is forming these rivers of blood, right? So like all of this must have developed because the demon is there.
So maybe we're going to see a lot more about what happened. Like we're going to learn a little more of the history of what happened before the demon.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, yeah.
I was just thinking about that. Like, what was it actually like before the prophet came 300 years ago and defeated the demon? If this is what it's like now when the demon's not there and it's just killing so many people, or like the land itself is killing so many people. How did life survive before the demon was stabbed by the prophet? Is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, like were there even blood rivers back then? Or like was there a time before the demon that like it all just worked differently? Maybe they did have water rivers before this. That's what I really want to know. I really want to know this whole story. Yeah.
Where are the water rivers?
Migrate there 300 years ago, like with the prophet?
I could see the prophet being like some external actor or someone, just some random denizen of the kingdom who rose up.
So what I was thinking, until we had started talking about this, I'd been imagining the demon as like some sort of great giant beast, like a dragon, sure, or something like of that size. But then I was sort of thinking of, well, if it's all magic anyway, what if the demon is just like a dude, And then you started saying that, and then I was like, what if December's mom comes from the same place as where the prophet and the demon came from? What if it's all off-world BS and like they came here and their magic started interacting? And that, I'm like, I wonder that because December is immune to this demon blood sickness. If maybe the prophet, like the system of prophets and demons, maybe there's a system of interaction here, and maybe it's from a same place, like a different place on the same world, and all of that, or maybe it's all just like a foreign interaction, and maybe that's why it was so impactful, like 90% of the population. That's a crazy amount of death. That's sort of like that will kill a world. Like we watched a world die. They can't sustain a world. They're all dead after December goes. So yeah, that's sort of why like my brain made that connection. Oh my God, I'm getting really excited for this book, guys.
So good. I'm so excited. I just had a good point actually, because going back to the question of like, did the demon escaping cause the illness or the river curdling? It's like, if you think about it, if the prophet cured the sickness 300 years ago and likewise stabbed the demon 300 years ago, right? Like, these are two things that happened. Was the sickness already there, and then by stabbing the demon, the sickness was cured? And so, like, you have to use the demon's investiture to prevent the sickness that would exist otherwise. The arcane sickness.
So, like, the sickness is native to the planet almost, and
possibly.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I think that that's definitely the implication. It feels really similar to like the deepness, and like I keep thinking back to Era 1, and so I feel like it could just be, you know, like that. But I gut instinct is that Brandon will want to zig where he zagged in Era 1, but I'm just not sure.
I want to talk more about like the comparison to Era 1, because I'm sitting here, I can kind of see it like in my mind, like, oh, it's sort of like medieval-esque, but you want to. I'm curious about like the link. Is it vibes? Is it theme? Is it structure?
Yeah, I think it's mostly structure. It's not like the setting itself. I don't think is really Era 1 coded in my mind. It's more the idea that there's like a prophecy that establishes a significant person going somewhere and doing something in order to sort of stop a world calamity. And then the world calamity seems to be happening again. And there's a new significant person. And they seem to need to go to the same place that the previous significant person went to do something to avert the calamity again. And that's sort of, that's why I go to Era 1. Because I think Brandon just sort of is interested in the idea of like a prophecy that's sort of interpreted by people over time, and the meaning drifts over time, perhaps due to intentional interference, perhaps just because people don't really remember exactly what happened. But yeah, that's why my mind goes to Era 1. But I think it's I feel like it's sort of going to be like Era 1's relevant to the story in terms of how this story differentiates itself from that sort of same starting premise.
Yeah. So it feels like we're feeling like we're pretty landed on, oh, of course she's a prophet. Maybe not like the first like 5 minutes after reading the chapters, but like now thinking about it, it's like, oh, like maybe this is what prophecy, how it works on this world, and the sense of she could be the returning prophet, or like the one. Yeah, I totally get that. And so like it's the same sort of thing. I wonder if like we had 300 years ago gone back, would we have described this prophet as having a way about him, having lights in his eyes, so I wonder about that sort of thing.
The thing with the lights in her eyes is very interesting, because like it's described as just a thing about her, like there's nothing to it, but I kind of think there's something to it. There's something behind it.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. The way about her, the stare, the lights in her eyes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's gonna be one of her greatest assets at court. Like it's gonna be like, what is this provincial fool doing here? And then she hits him with a stare. And then
I will be screeching at that point, because I'm sure that's gonna happen. And I will be screeching.
Of course, she's gonna hit the king with that. She's gonna hit the king with that stare.
I don't want to be too loud on the mic here, but it's gonna be a very she did it.
Yeah. So there's a phrase, I don't know if it's repeated, but it's something that stood out describing her eyes. Eyes like night, with what seemed to be distant stars deep within, or fires on a far off hill.
Oh, that's so good.
So that's very evocative.
It's very evocative. A lot of the prose in this is evocative. Definitely this phrase, you're like, this girl's magic. Yeah. She's that's a little bit more than just poetry, right? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And so I can't think of anything that like having stars within your eyes or fires on a far off. I don't think of anything. I can't think of anything that reminds me of from an existing Cosmere thing, but it could be a hint of her ancestry if she's a partially world hopper. Could be a hint at some native magic thing to this planet where this is how people to be prophets are like. Not sure.
What if the prophet and the demon are the same person?
Now that would be something.
Oh, that would.
Now that's very Warbreaker.
I was just thinking about hold on, because there are a few points in the first couple chapters where Hoid makes a point in his narration of being like, the people of this town thought this for bad reasons, and then it's like this time it was kind of true, but they were mean to think that of her, and I was like, they thought she was a witch, and he's like, that was very mean of them, and I'm like, what if she's the new demon and the new prophet? I don't know. Sorry, it just that thought just immediately struck me of that would fit structure of some of the narration hints of what Hoid's been doing.
We don't really have any myths on what the prophet did after stabbing the demon. So him being the demon and being stuck in the capital, bleeding into the rivers would give an explanation for why he didn't do anything else afterwards. I
like this.
Yeah.
I think I'm brilliant. I think that just made my whole day.
I really like this idea, Shannon, and I had the thought of what if she sacrifices herself at the end, and that was what the original prophet had to do as well.
I like that. I also think we're going to be challenged by that idea because Brandon likes to set up this as he always does a redeeming of the past mistake or what they couldn't accomplish in the past. So I think it's definitely going to happen, but I think there's going to be a step beyond where she stabs herself or she's going to stab herself, but then it's 11th hour Brandon magic reveal something, and it's going to be she does it, but then she thinks of the third path. The third option.
Something else happens. It's Vin at the Well of Ascension.
Right. Yeah.
I think it has to end with her finding a way to permanently, a way to stop the requirement of having someone every 300 years come to the capital and stab themselves.
Or something. Yeah.
I wanted to make the point quick too, just going back for a second with her eyes being different. We have seen that before with Light Eyes and Stormlight.
Oh, the spiritual web nature, the spiritual DNA. Thing.
Being ancestors of people who had magic affects your eyes. Yeah, that's true.
So maybe I'm wondering if well, she's a dark eyes. Who knows? Maybe it's just a very different kind of magic.
Speaking of December's magic, this may be a good time to just sort of talk about the fact that we seemingly have time travel in this book. At least it's presented as time travel.
But I don't think it's going to be a time loop. Brandon did this little line, and he says made sure that she had the thought, that December had the thought, I probably won't be able to do this again. This is probably my only next shot. She was showing everything that she needed to see in that one life. And I was like, okay, that's Brandon sort of maybe communicating, this isn't going to happen. This isn't a time loop thing. This is something else.
Yeah, because Brandon, I think, well, he has said, and I think he will stick with his feelings on this, that he doesn't want to do time travel, being able to go back in time as a thing in the Cosmere. So I think mechanically, what she did was she got a vision, sort of how Dalinar can get visions from the spiritual realm or something. She was basically sent or I guess Elend would probably be a better example of getting an expansive vision of the future, where her vision was specifically a potential version of her life going to her death. And that vision was given to her on her 21st birthday. And then chapter 2 is basically the real world again, where she has gotten this vision.
On a significant night, the night she becomes an adult. Yeah, that definitely.
Yeah. What that reminds me of ATM, I guess, but what it also reminded me of, well, I was listening to the reading initially, was The Returned from Warbreaker. So when they return, they get a vision of the future. And specifically, the vision of the future is given to them so that they sort of have a motivation to do something when they're returned. So like Lightsong sees a vision of Halandran burning because of a war. And so he returns to stop the war. December sees a vision of a plague coming, and so she returns to stop the plague. It's just she never died. She just got the vision. That's sort of my take on like this. Basically the entirety of chapter 1.
I just had the same thought about her having a vision instead of it being a time loop.
Yeah, like as soon as like we landed on Prophet, I'm like, oh, this is how prophets like in this world or where December's mom is from, our world, happen. Like, oh, okay, this is a way of perceiving like and predicting the future. And I'm like, oh, that would be an interesting way to do it. Like it's not just the truth came to me and I just knew what was going to happen. This is like, oh, this it's a new style of the same thing, but not actual time travel. Yeah. The question has mattered significantly less to me because I like time travel. I'll like it if it's time travel. I'll like it if it's not. But for those who care, I also probably agree it's not actually time travel.
I think narratively it'll be significant because I think in the back of her mind, it'll be like, if she gets into a life-threatening situation, it'll be like, well, if I die, will I just like go back to some previous point? You know, obviously she isn't the type of person to take those risks, I don't think, unnecessarily. But I think narratively it'll be like, if she does sacrifice herself or something at the end, I could see the narrative playing around with the idea of like, is this all going to have been a vision or not? But I don't think that it will be. I think it's a one-off.
I agree. I think that was communicated. I think that is what we're supposed to take away from that line.
The line keeps coming up too that it's a gift. And people are using that a lot to reference to endowment.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you guys. I can take a turn to ask a question.
Yes.
Do you think December's mom also had a vision?
Oh, that'd be sad. That'd be sad.
Well, notably, she does have the same eyes of like
the same eyes.
Yeah.
Maybe of
like
the same kind of people. Maybe the same kind of people. Like maybe she's like of a people like that they could. That's a sad life. That's a sad way to go.
Yeah. That particularly like knowing how she dies as well. Like if you had a vision of that, you're like, okay, I have to go to this place so that I can have a child and then immediately leave them.
That's rough. I want to say like I don't want her to have because I think it's sadder if she knew it was coming. If that makes sense. I like to think that it was just a normal sort of tragedy, a normal sort of she went through life trying to do her best and had a kid. And
I could also see it as like maybe she could have been the prophet, but she like the visions that you get, that like the vision that December got may be valuable. Well, I mean, it's obviously going to be valuable because she'll be like changing stuff. So like by the time that she gets to court, there may be a slightly different stuff. So maybe December's mom got a vision of what she was supposed to do, but just sort of by chance things didn't work out. Maybe, I don't know.
Like she's obviously not in control of if she dies in childbirth, like that's just.
Yeah. Well, the way I think, because with December, she didn't get a vision of what she was supposed to do. She got a vision of what happened if she just kind of kept going as she was. And so I almost wonder, like, would December's mom have had a vision of what happened if she stayed wherever she was to begin with? And so that's why she up and traveled.
Oh,
and so by the time she has December, she's actually already lived a full life too.
Possibly.
Possibly.
And at least like, because theoretically, chapter 3, December goes off on her journey and dies. Theoretically. Even
Probably
though,
not,
like,
theoretically.
Because now she's on like a completely new path, like unpredictable. She knows about news from the capital, but that has nothing to do with her life in the town that she already saw. So like theoretically, I could see that have happened of her mom got a vision and like she knew she couldn't stay where she was, or she knew it'd be better to go on, but she wouldn't know that she would have died that way. Interesting.
She dies in chapter 3 and now it's a ghost story.
Actually, someone brought up Paige brought up a really good point. We were chatting about this. There's a line in there is that was it. She withdrew. This is Hoid talking about meeting her. She withdrew and we did not speak again during her lifetime. And that could mean they just don't talk again, but it could mean something interesting with what is her lifetime. Like, how are we defining that?
Like now that she's seen her
in
death. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is it the lifetime we see in chapter 1, or is it the lifetime she then lives later?
Mm-hmm.
Totally got to be the first one. And like, to me, that's like, oh, I get it. He's being clever. He's going to talk to her in her second lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was. That was my takeaway, and I think I'm going to be proven right on that one. I think Hoid's going to be in this book, and they'll have a little. I don't know, maybe. Otherwise,
maybe coat rack again.
Yeah. And theoretically, maybe they'll never actually speak. Like, but he'll be around in some form or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could see that too.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of outs in the way that sentence is constructed. Yeah.
They'll interact maybe in the second life, whether or not they speak in her second life. Yeah. Even if it's just, hanging a coat on
the
Hoid's crown. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
I do wonder if we'll see design. Because I don't think we have any indication on timeline.
It's always tough because sometimes when she's around and we know she's still around, we don't see her. So yeah, and so what design is, or whether she's around or what form she's in, could definitely help us place this on the timeline, the meta timeline.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think it's time we talk about someone we've neglected, someone very important. Bark. Hey, screw this guy. Hey.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
One chapter, he's in one chapter, and I don't know, man.
One chapter's too many.
Too many. Why do we think he was even in this story to begin with? Because I thought it was very impactful. It definitely got me hooked on the emotions of it, but it was definitely not pleasant to read.
Mm-hmm. I think at some point when she shows up in court and is dealing with, the Duke or the Count or whatever, I imagine there's going to be something like she thinks back to dealing with Bark and is either these guys are just like Bark, just with more money, or something like that, where a specific person that she interacts with in the future is similar to Bark, and her experience with him allows her to deal with them succinctly, or something like that.
I think Brandon's also experimenting a bit with more difficult topics, and the point was meant to be that it is uncomfortable and it is harder to read, but he wants to be able to write these things and include them in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Because he certainly doesn't go into as much detail, like the grimy horror detail, as maybe other authors do, even though this is a little bit more out there for him.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked how it adds contrast. And stepping back a second, when we talk about going back to when Brandon did the reading, I think at FanX, I want to say, he read about the princess. Have you guys read that at all?
I think I have, yeah. It's a trunk novel, I think.
It's the first, I forget, I think it's a chapter, maybe two. And it's supposed to be another Hoid story. And he talks about how he was trying to find the right tone for this, and how that story was too silly. And so coming to this, Bark adds a lot of that seriousness that I think helps add a lot of heart into the story. There's a lot of emotional weight behind the story, at least in the first two chapters.
And I would say this is one of the most, how can I say this? This is one of the things Brandon has written where I have most gone, oh, he's really considering like life for women. Like this is like the way it can happen. I think there's like, to me, there's like a little bit of like extra back padding, but maybe we can ascribe that to Hoid's narrative voice of like being a little bit too proud of himself for being on the right side of history kind of thing. But at the same time, I really quite like that this is a story about this woman and the way like things like life can be for a woman in her situation.
I like the detail too, how it feels like he spent time thinking about it, because she walks out of the house when Bark is angry, or when Bark is about to kind of get upset. She kind of has this thing where she walks out of the house and goes up and down the river. Like she has this way to get away. And it feels very like he spent time trying to get into December's head.
Yeah. Even that was a little bit of an ideal, a fantasy, because sometimes, women can't leave or don't leave for whatever reason. They find they can't. And so it was just one of those things of, I wondered if at the beginning, if I was just going to be listening to a story of her being in that her whole life until Bark died. And thankfully it wasn't that. There were other things December needed to learn and do, even in this first life, which will probably still come to something. Her life for a short time in the docks, her life with Metin, being a stepmother. Yeah, interesting to think about. Really easy to also to just say like, hate this guy.
Very good.
Yeah. One of his most easily hateable.
Very efficiently written.
Yeah. Very efficiently killed in chapter 2 as well. Brought to justice.
And when it's harder to hear, I was listening for it on the video. You can't hear as well on the video. The level of cheering when she's like, I will not marry you. You could not get me to marry you. You could, I forget the exact phrase, something like smack me on the head with a shovel, take all the sense out of me or something. I would still not marry you. You can't hear it in the video recording very well. But at Nexus, the cheering for that was wild. It was like, yes, you tell him. Yeah. It felt so good.
Yeah.
It's such a moment. And they're sharp as mud and thick as topsoil. It's also just a great phrase.
That's the kind of wordplay Brandon really likes. But also, this is some of the nicest in prose that I've ever read from Brandon. I really like a lot of his turns of phrase. In this than even the other Hoid Trevails books. A lot of great lines. I just found myself struck by so many of them, and like we have some of them here. Rivershore was a great distance from it, philosophically and mentally, in the same way you might find a prologue quite distinct from the rest of the story. A passing sailor with the charm of a sonnet, but the moral character of a limerick. Bonnie, I think you were grabbing these quotes?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, same on this one. This one like made me pause, actually pause reading for a bit, and like I was like, oh, that is clever. That's clever. It was a face composed in a minor key. Lots of lines like this, and I think Brandon is just getting better at these sorts of lines, these sorts of quotes. They're a little bit more subtle. They're more interesting. I like these. I like this a lot. Like I thought the actual technical writing of this, the prose, was really, really enjoyable. Really enjoyable.
My favorite one, I don't think I even put in there because it's a little bit longer, but it's not too long. It's you might have been expecting more from me. A tale, some advice, at the very least a joke. Well, you're in the first currently. The second isn't until the end, and you won't find the third until you brush your teeth later.
I love that line. Of that one.
Such a good line. And then poetically, my favorite is the face composed in a minor key. Just when you talk about writing these lines, I think a part of it is doing it in a new way, right? Like you can explain wind in a similar way to other authors, or like there's ways you phrase things the same every time. And a face composed in a minor key is just such a new way of phrasing that. I just
gotta find new phrases.
Exactly.
I just thought of something and I feel so stupid for waiting this long. This is back to our discussion about what December is. The demon makes fire in the sky. The Fires of December. Sorry, hold on. Whoa. Please let her actually make cool physical fires or auroras or something like that. That would be
cool.
Brandon, do it. Brandon, don't let me down. I need her to be a demon now. I need her to be the next cool demon.
Make it the title literal.
That would be fun. I like it. I like it poetically as well. I really do like the title. I think it's very evocative, and I would appreciate it from any author as well. Not just Brandon. I think it's quite a good title. However, the name December.
Yeah.
So some people found the name December a little bit difficult, and Brandon tried very hard to get ahead of it for some people who found this name difficult to bear, because Brandon has also made quite a lot between the difference between Earth and the Cosmere, those sorts of works. And so the name December, very much an Earth word that is not really, but I don't know. What do you guys think? What are our opinions on if December's totally fine, or if we have a little resistance to this very, very Earth word?
I don't like it. I like the name December, and I think it fits the story. I think the thing that bugs me the most is the in-world justification for it. Like that, the first line of the girl was born in the last cold hour of the last cold day of the last cold month of an unseasonably cold winter. I think that's a really lovely line to write, and I don't think it fits in the Cosmere.
Is that your Southern Hemisphere bias?
Well, it's just like, it's not the coldest day a month, though.
It's not the cold. It's true. Even up here, it's not the coldest month. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a name associated with winter, I think could have accomplished pretty much the same objective as naming her December, and you wouldn't need to name her after a month.
You know what she could be called? Winter. I think that would work just as well.
Yeah, like winter, aurora, I don't know, cold stuff, winter stuff. I think that you get the dichotomy of fire and cold in the title. I do think that Frost is a perfectly good name. I think naming after the time of year when things are dead and dying, I think can have thematic relevance to the story. But yeah, I think that the name is sort of like a lot of other times that Brandon calls attention to a pun or something. It just feels like, if you skip over it, it's okay. If you bring attention to it, then it just sort of becomes hard to skip over, which I sort of resent as a reader.
That's an interesting point, and I think I agree with that. In the sense of, if he had just let it lie, I would have zero problem with it, because I'm he just liked it. He wanted to have it this way. And then the more he lingers on it and tries to justify it and get ahead of it, now I'm thinking about it, and now I'm going to have an opinion on it. And now I'm well, no. Since you've done this, Brandon, since you have emphasized how much you want the name December to work, well, now I'm I don't think it works. Even though I heard the name of the book, and I'm I really still do love the title, Fires of December. It's great. It has a great rhythm. It rolls off the tongue. And it is evocative poetically. It brings a sort of emotion to mind. But you want to do this? You want to get into why it makes sense in the Cosmere to have the name December? Brandon. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think I would be lot more okay with the name December if he just didn't justify it. If he just called her December and went with it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the stuff he is saying about the translation would just be automatically in my mind, and I would have accepted it, and I'll be okay, fair enough. if he even had that line about, the line is in the book about December, and I'm like, just skip the one line that like is there to sort of justify it. Just say coldest day, coldest month, last hour, whatever, and then just like refer to her as December. Then my mind makes the connection automatically, and I'm like, oh, that's sort of lovely. And now he invokes Grandpa Tolkien. And now I'm like, well, Brandon, yeah, there's too much attention now being paid to it. I can read Brandon's answer to this, or his answer to the questioner, because we have a WOB. So I'll go ahead. This is going to be a long one. So, questioner, the previous Hoid stories, Yumi and Tress, based on his word choice, I know they're like translations. Based on his previous word choices, we kind of assumed he was telling these stories to a Rosharan. Brandon says, yeah, well, each of those two books are told to different audiences. So the questioner resumes, how does Hoid know the word December? Who is he talking to? And Brandon says, I use Grandpa Tolkien's philosophy on this. Did you know that Sam's name isn't Sam? What is Sam's name, Hilgo? I can't remember. It is Banazir Gulpsy. Samwise Gamgee is actually Banazir Gulpsy, Ban for short, instead of Sam. But for an English-speaking audience, Tolkien translated his name because he said in their language, Sam's name was something like a common name from ancient religious lore that's been shortened into a cute nickname like Sam is. You can go read about this. That's not his actual name. That's correct. I think there's definitely an argument for fantasy authors to try to not kick people out. But at the same time, there is madness in trying to say, well, I can't use this word because... The one that I bring up, you usually wouldn't use the word Ottoman because it comes from the Ottoman Empire, but at the same time, it's been genericized to be an Ottoman. There are so many words in English that if you actually go to the history and be like, well, this was named for a person, the word that we use, does that mean we can't use that word in fantasy? I think in that direction lies madness. So the way that we deal with it, that Tolkien said, and I read this essay by him years and years ago before I even became a professional author, and I said, that's the way I'm going to do it, is that Brandon Sanderson is presenting this to you in translation. And I want you to understand whenever anyone in that world hears December's name, they don't hear a normal name that you're used to. They hear the name of a month. And they're like, well, that's odd that she's named after a month. They don't hear that, like, when you hear Sanderson, you probably say, oh, that's a name. You don't hear, oh, that came from Alexander's son, Sanderson. Because it's just a name that we hear. But they stop when they hear her name. Because of that, I want to put it in translation into English in a way where you read it, you're reminded of her heritage and that her mother gave her this unique name and that she's named after the day of the month, and kind of evoking that in the early first few paragraphs. That's how I approach doing this, and it's been my philosophy since the beginning. And that's why there's, homicidal hat trick in Mistborn 3. In all of Whit's stories, one of the things I've done is he's doing lots of interesting puns. Those would have to be completely different puns in their language. You just kind of have to put this filter over the top where you're like, Brandon is presenting it to me so I have a certain feeling. When he names something Allomancy or Ferukami or something like this, Greek and Latin don't exist on Scadrial. Why do we have these Greek and Latin origin of names? Well, they have their own linguistic systems that evoke the same feeling. To go otherwise, I think, lies madness. I know this is a sort of blanket. Brandon can do whatever he wants. That's why I do it. But I did know that December is name in particular, like, there was some discussion. Do I change it? And sometimes when you're a writer, you're just like, my artistic intent, I love that name. That's who she is. And I had that name from sentence 1. I'm not going to change that. It's too intrinsic to the soul of the piece of art. I do understand that there's some that kicks out, and I totally understand that. That's not an invalid complaint, but I do understand that this is how I approach all the writing. That doesn't mean I won't try to not kick you out when I can. I do know that switching from courting to dating bothered some people in Stormlight 5, and they're right. If I could go back, I would change that one, because there's no real reason to use one or the other, except one does evoke just a little bit more of that classical feel. There definitely are valid complaints and things I would change if it gets highlighted.
I think it worked for me. I like hearing the reasons behind why Brandon makes the choices he does, or any author. Just why December? And I think this is a good explanation, is he had a goal with the name, is to evoke a certain sense. And so he kind of went for that. I do agree, talking about it so much, the more you talk about it, the more you kind of are thinking about it, the more it's highlighted when you're reading. I think the further we get in the story, the more it's kind of going to fade to the background. Because right now we only have the 2 chapters, so it's very in the forefront and it's very new. But at some point, I think it's going to fade and just kind of become like, yep, that's our name.
I did find, like, I didn't notice at all when reading, even though I had this opinion about the name before reading the chapters. I was sick and I didn't get the chance to get to read them until actually very recently. So I think like that's my thing is like it doesn't actually pull me out. When I stop and I'm outside the book, when I'm not reading it, that's when I sort of think about it and have a problem. So when I'm actually reading the text, when I'm reading the chapters, and I think when we get the book in hand, I will probably not even notice it. As a reader, I will just go along with it and think, great, love it. If you find me outside the book when I'm not actually really reading, if you find me on the Discord or whatever and ask me my opinion, I'll be like, blah, what is Brandon thinking? December. So just keep in mind, like sometimes I have that opinion because I'm not actually just in it and chilling and having a good time. I feel like I have a stronger opinion because Brandon put so much justification into it, and it does feel more like justification than explanation to me. As you can see, I totally think Bonnie's completely valid as well. And if you also have Bonnie's opinion of liking it, every single element of it, and the WOB, more power to you too. I'm not here to say anyone is wrong about it, but that's just more how I feel.
I think this is a really good example of when you can really like something, but like you have some issue with it, but the issue is kind of outside of liking the actual book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's totally it. And in fact, it's kind of hard for me to actually put this against the book. Like, I don't consider this like a flaw or critique at all. Like, this isn't, I'm not going to knock a point off my star rating for Fires of December because she's named December. Not at all. I totally get what Brandon is going for. I think maybe my issue is a little bit more like, maybe a little bit more defensive of like, I didn't need this explanation. I got it. I didn't need 6 paragraphs of the explanation of why you did this because I had it already. And now I'm like, now I feel like because you explained it, I like as if I didn't know that already. So maybe it's just a little bit of like childish, like my mom told me to clean my room, but I was already going to do it. So now I don't want to anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's more the emotional like reaction. Maybe it's not actually linguistic in nature at all.
But the thing that really does like stick out to me is that like the second paragraph in the entire book is Hoid telling me that he is translating the name into December.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's like one step to.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I see that as well.
Yeah.
Because Tolkien did not do that. Tolkien did not say in the text of the book, I'm translating this. It's in like Appendix F or whatever at the end of Return of the King. That he has like all these other Hobbit names and et cetera, et cetera. Like translation notes as if you were translating. They're all just at the back of the book, but like completely out of the text. Yeah,
I can see that. I do like the jump back in the second paragraph, though, that kind of puts the narrator back into this. Is I shall use the translation as like, I am telling you this story.
I think like I liked Hoid jumping in, like making clear it was narration at the interaction at the table. Like, oh, that was such a handsome man with an incredible nose. Mm-hmm. And I won't hear any other words said about my nose. Like, you know, like, and that sort of like that slow break in. I think like that to me is like even better. Like just like making clear this is a narration a story told to you by Hoid. But yeah, like I don't mind that at all. Like for me, I didn't mind, for example, like the jump from Yumi, when all of a sudden like 3/4 in, Hoid is like, so you're probably pretty confused about what's going on here. I liked that a lot. So again, I didn't necessarily like this one, but I can see why someone would.
Some people have a little bit of trouble with the prosy part of it, and specifically, like Brandon mentions in the WOB too, about having December kick people out of the story. I can see for people who very strongly value the not kicking the reader out of the story, how that would be bothersome too. I don't personally find it bothersome, but I could see it. Like, I get that feedback.
Yeah. Well, that was more pleasant than I thought it would be, the discussion on linguistics. I guess we weren't actually all that fired up about it.
So just to round us out with a couple of little fun facts, Brandon has confirmed this is a new planet. This is not a planet we have seen before. And this is also the earliest of the stories in Hoid's Trevails. So it's set before Tress and Yumi.
So Hoid's part, or like this actual like December story?
I think December's story.
Because there's kind of two timelines. Where's Hoid on this? When he's telling someone, or yeah.
I think that Brandon has nailed down the order of like the events of Tress and Yumi in terms of like when Tress's adventures happen relative to when Yumi's stuff happens. But he's been very cagey on when the narration happens. So I don't know if we'll ever get like a solid answer on that stuff.
Yeah.
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Braze.
Hoid in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character?
Welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game show where you send 5 clues and a character to wtcc at 17thshard.com. I read each clue aloud, and after each clue, our panelists have a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. This first one is sent in from Wesley H. This character has a chapter from their POV.
I'll guess Syl.
No, it's not Sel.
Sen.
It's not Sen.
Lift.
It's not Lift. Okay. Clue 2. This character travels the world they're on.
Axes.
It is Axie.
That was my guess too. I should have said it first.
Oh, so very good second clue. I'll read out the rest. Clue 3. This character is basically immortal. Clue 4. This should have maybe been the 5th clue. This character studies and catalogs Spren. Clue 5. This character calls themselves a void bringer after destroying a small city.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
I forgot that bit.
It was cute. It was cute. In the back alley or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was extremely fast. That was extremely fast. So the thing about the priority queue for WTCC, we're about out. Eric has told me that we are running out of priority queue, so we're actually not going to do a second WTCC today. So if you want your Who's That Cosmere character, go support us on Patreon and submit them to the priority queue. But our regular tier on Patreon is just $1 a month, where you can see all of our outtakes and vote on art polls. Well, thanks so much for watching, everyone. You can find us on 17thshard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun you could ever want. You can find us at discord.gg/17thshard for our very exciting Discord server. If you would like to support us, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/17thshard. And we will see you next time for probably WOBs. There's a lot to do on those. Bye.
Bye.
Oh.